Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples, and I'm here tonight with Bruce McCurdy, who's got to lean into the middle of the screen when he's ready to roll. Bruce, you're still not in the middle. You're kind of on the. There you go. There you go. These are the kind of technical difficulties we can deal with on the fly, Bruce, on this podcast. Impressive. All right, Bruce. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Oilers lose 3-2 to the last place team in the league and now are tied for last in the league. San Jose still has, the Oilers have a game in hand on San Jose. So, Bruce, doom descends upon the Oilers tonight. I think we're going to see the coach fired, would be my guess, but we'll get into that. We might see other people fired. Looks like they've run out of answers. So there you have it. 12 games in to the season. And Jay Woodcroft, riding high as an NHL coach, has just managed to lead his team to 2 wins in 12 games. And the Oilers have looked terrible.
Back-to-back 4-game losing streaks with a single outdoor game win in between. I mean, they won the right game, but it's just unacceptable. 4 regulation losses in a row. They haven't even managed to harvest 1 point out of this most recent string of futility.
We're going to talk a lot about what's to come in a moment when we get to the conundrum part of our 2 good things, 2 bad things, 2 numbers, and 1 conundrum podcast. And so let's just go through the game. We don't have to belabor it too much. I will say, just as an overall comment, the Oilers just showed very little life for the first 2 periods of this game until a late flurry in the second period led by McDavid. They were being outworked, out-hit. Holloway had a good hit late in the game. It was the Oilers' first game hit, and it came late in the second period. There just were the physical play, the desperation was absolutely missing from the Oilers, which I think will be the signal for Woodcroft to go. Because if they had just scrapped like hell, as they did from the, late second period on in the game, there might be some hope here, but I don't see them sticking with Jay Woodcroft right now. Bruce, what is your good thing?
Yeah, okay. I'm going to pick out of that mess Matthias Ekholm as my good thing, recognizing that he was among those beaten on the all-important first goal of this game. But I thought this was the liveliest and most active game we've seen from Ekholm, that he was really getting involved in the play in the offensive zone, going deep in the zone. He had 5 shots on net, 10 shots at net. He had an assist, and I thought he was sort of battling, even though he didn't get any credit for any hits. But I thought he was at least sort of one of the ones who raised his game as it went along. Unfortunately, I'll talk about this in a minute, but it took him the whole team a while to get into the game, and he was one that came along as the game went along, and the Oilers certainly dominated possession. But this is a typical line with Ekholm on the ice. The Oilers outshot the Sharks 15-6 and got outscored 1-0. At even strength. They did score 6 on 5. So
yeah, he did lose the battle in the corner on that first goal against. So when that happens, there shouldn't be a goal against necessarily when a player loses a battle in the corner. It happens all the time. There should be layers of defenders, And of course, there wasn't. The Oilers
Forwards
just leave
covering and stuff like
forwards
that. No?
covering in the slot, and it was pathetic. That play,
Yeah.
Draisaitl just cruised out from the corner slowly to the slot, and Holloway had to cover two guys. He picked the wrong one.
Did he
It was
ever?
a shit show of a
Hmm.
play. Like honestly.
Yep.
Um, my good thing is Evan Bouchard. Bruce, he kept a clean sheet at even strength, not one major mistake on a goal against himself. He was moving the puck exceptionally well all game long, and Ekholm was smart enough right at the end of the game when the Oilers needed a shot on net. Ekholm is one of the few Oilers defensemen who has the savvy to realize, why would I shoot it?
Hmm.
He should shoot it and wait for Evan Bouchard to set up, slide the puck over. Bouchard just pounded it on net, and Nugent Hopkins put in the rebound. He set up McDavid in the second period. It was his great play actually that started off that flurry that led to 4 or 5 really great chances for the Oilers. He put the puck into the slot looking for McDavid, who tipped it on net. I think that was the first of the dangerous shots. Let me just go to our game greats. That was the first of the dangerous shots. And after that, Edmonton had 3 5 alarm shots quickly. Draisaitl on a wraparound. Hyman, how did he not score? How did he not score? It was right on the doorstep, slammed it hard backhand, and he couldn't put it in. And then McDavid got it. Um, Excuse me. Those were the 3 chances in that flurry. And then a minute later, they're out there again, and he hits McDavid
Still.
on the fly, and McDavid looked more like the real Connor McDavid than he has at any point this season, except for the first game or two. He charged into the zone, cut diagonally across the slot, and slammed it on net. Just a beautiful play, and he couldn't score, and then Hyman couldn't score on the rebound. So just superb offensive plays from Evan Bouchard. Um, I know there was some people who felt he should have been benched after last game, Bruce. I addressed that in a post. I think it's that. Listen, I'm not against benching players.
Hmm.
I'm okay with benching players, but I don't like for singling out Bouchard, who made a tough play. It was a tough play, but although if you look at it again, it's Fogle actually who causes as much as anything the 2-on-1 by falling down and losing his feet. And when Bouchard was going for the puck, he hadn't yet seen Fogle fall down. So anyway, that's not. I'm
Well,
relitigating that too much, but listen, the Oilers have been plagued with defensive mistakes, and to single out Bouchard in that moment
well,
for sitting down, I just think is madness, because you could sit down any number of players this game, any game on the Oilers. There's just constant bad decisions, constant bad plays. He's he's one of the guys making them, but no more than a lot of the other ones. And yeah, I didn't like that talk. I didn't like that vibe.
yeah. Well, I think, in fairness, the talk after the game was that he he could have been benched for like the rest of that period. I don't think anybody was advocating him, benching him for the next game or anything like that. Just for, some immediate feedback of, this kind of stuff isn't helping Evan. But he is far from alone, and it feels like I could name about 12 forwards who've had really bad time on the defensive side of things, and tonight being no exception. You know, San Jose had 18 shots tonight only, so that's a really great defensive performance, right? Except for all 3 of their goals came on uncontested one-timers from the slot, where it was just a pass or whatever. It was a fluky bounce in one case, but the guy wasn't covered. And the other 2 cases was a pass to a guy alone in front. He just hammered it into the net. How many shots did Edmonton get like that in the whole game? Yeah, sure, they got 41 shots, but how many uncontested shots did they get from the slot?
Hyman's shot was
On a
I would
rebound,
say was
yeah.
the only one
Hmm.
that came close
Yeah,
to being of the same level of danger. Like there's
right.
we track grade A shots and then the even more dangerous 5 alarm shots, but there is this higher class of shots, and
Hmm.
I think it was about 3-1 in this
Yeah,
game where where you really have an elevated chance of scoring. And on each of those plays, Bruce,
yeah.
it's a forward um, who wasn't covering in the slot. It wasn't
in a sense, yeah,
it wasn't always the forward
right.
who made the initial mistake, but it was the forward who should have been covering in the slot and failed to do so. And this is the story of the Oilers right now, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. So,
What's your bad thing?
yeah, well, that kind of was it. But I guess to extend on the on that point, Evander Kane, who was a day late and a dollar short in coverage on both the second and third goals, and didn't really have a whole lot going on in San Jose of all places, where you think he'd be motivated. Just one shot, two hits, two giveaways in this game, so the numbers don't say much, and -1 where he was reaching instead of being on the guy in the slot who hammered the one off the fluky bounce, and then on the winning goal. I mean, this was a bad play all the way around. It was a bad play by Nurse at the offensive blue line to try and make a move on the guy, but I mean, it took a second for that to unfold, and he did not get the puck deep in the corner, and he lost the battle. And Kane, I don't know where he was, because he sure wasn't thinking, boy, my defenseman's in a spot of bother. Maybe I should try and cover for him. Like fundamental basic hockey, right? Like you probably used to teach to the girls' team that you coached last year, right? Like, and I
Cover
just
for
don't
the
get
defense.
it.
If
None of
the
the Oilers
defense is
forwards
pinching, cover for
seem
them.
to
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah,
And,
Bruce, they're all offensive guys, right? This is their thing. They're all these
yeah,
offensive aces, and
hmm,
they puck watch, and they're
yeah,
hoping for the goal. And
hmm,
this reminds me so much of the Decade of Darkness teams,
yeah,
because like we saw this constantly with like Taylor Hall and Eberle and Gagne at that time, and there's lots of talented young forwards on the team, but they were constantly doing these things. But these guys are veteran players who can play solid two-way hockey. And I don't know, they're just so desperate to score now that there's a ton of puck watching going on, and
yeah,
there's a ton of desperate play and passes that shouldn't be made instead of conservative play. And you pointed out Nurse there. All he had to do was get the puck deep. He had a chance,
yeah.
but he wanted to make the big play. He wanted to cut back into the middle of the ice, and then he just couldn't execute that. And then the guy's on him, and then he loses the puck. And
He had mostly had a pretty good game tonight, I thought. He scored a really nice goal and
yeah,
made a couple of big shot blocks, and but that was a mistake. And on this team, you make a mistake, and nobody picks you up. And certainly the goalie never seems to. I mean, the 2-on-1 that ensued there. Well, I think you'll probably talk about it a little bit, but they wound up with both the D man and the goalie committing 100% to the guy with the puck, and he just makes a sort of easy pass across the slot, and the other guy, uh, Philip Zadina, I think it was, failed Ken Holland draft pick Philip Zadina sticks it to Ken Holland yet again by scoring the winning goal on a 2-on-1 break, where he almost whiffed the shot and he put it in the side closest to Skinner, but the net was so wide open that he had basically the whole net to shoot at, because the goalie and the D man had committed to the puck carrier. And so Kane is just one little part of that problem. So even singling guys out, like I would rather say my bad things are just things like team defense and allowing too many clear, wide open, uncontested shots from the slot.
well, you have to be careful singling people out, Bruce, or you might get accused of running players out of town.
Uh-huh, yeah.
And
So
just,
I heard.
yeah, I should mention Darnell. I will also reiterate Darnell Nurse did have a good game other than that play. That was a really bad play.
Other
But
than the
man,
game
his
losing
goal.
goal against, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. A veteran defenseman making a major mistake on a game-winning goal against. Not trying to run him out of town. He's not leaving town. He's got a contract, which at this point would be hard to move, frankly. And
And a no
and
movement clause.
and a movement. No one's anyway. That was just ridiculous stuff. But Nurse, great goal, man. Did he come down the ice and slam that home with authority on a really nice pass from Fogle and then Leon Draisaitl. Great pass from Leon, and Nurse put it in with authority. Great play by him. Bruce, my bad thing this game was his partner, Cody Ceci, who has been the Oilers' steadiest defenseman this year. But man, did he have a bad game. It was rancid. And it starts out early on when he makes a bad pinch. About 6 minutes left in the first period, and the Oilers were lucky not to be scored on at that point. There's a hard charge up the ice, and Darnell goes for the puck, and it goes through him to the guy in the I think it was the Zetterlund who got off that shot. Anyway, I don't know what Ceci was doing on the play. He was just up way kind of out of the play, battling someone, not even for the puck. And they get a 2-on-1. Leon charges back and tries to take it away, but still a 2-on-1 shot. So that's his first mistake. And you'd think after so many rush chances against the Oilers and rush goals against the Oilers, the defenseman would be really wary of pinching like that. But he, there you have it. On the next goal against, he allows the pass out from the corner into the slot where they score on. He's a culprit on the third goal against, as you've mentioned. He fails to cut out the 2-on-1 pass. I mean, how often on these rush chances have the Oilers defensemen this year been able to cut out 2-on-1 passes? It's
almost
usually
never. It's unreal.
It's a fairly common thing in the NHL for defensemen to be able to cut out those passes, but no. I have him down. I don't remember this one. Let me just see. In the second period, there's another one where he allowed the shot. Oh, yeah. In the second period, McLeod's battling in the corner for the puck, and he's late getting there, and there's a puck passed into the high slot to LeBanc. And Ceci, this play's slow developing. There's only one guy in the high slot. Cody Ceci just has to move out to get him, but, he was puck watching. And LeBanc has a wide open shot, which the broadcasters, Jack Michaels and Lee DeBrusque, claim that this could be the turning point. This was the big save from Stuart Skinner.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the reason he had to make that save was Ceci was hadn't gone to the shooter. Yeah. So it was just play after play where he wasn't
There
sharp.
was four of them one-timers from the slot, and 3 of them went in. And then there was the clear breakaway where McDavid lost the puck on the power play, and the guy took it off and went in all alone, and Skinner managed to make that save. The guy tried to deke him rather than shoot.
Well, it was a breakaway. Yeah. I give McDavid credit for getting back hard and he lifted his stick at one point.
He made it, at least harassed.
That threw off the guy's timing in terms of making a move. We'll just change that though to McDavid allowing a breakaway on that because he did. All right, enough of that. Let's move on to our numbers, Bruce. I'll just quickly give my number. It's we've been tracking this all year. The Oilers have now given up 23 goals in 12 games on even strength rushes, and they've only scored 7. Tonight it was 2-1 for San Jose off the rush. What's your number?
Yeah, they just there's just when they're pushing to score, there's just no thought or focus or attention to any kind of detailed hockey to give into covering. What happens if the puck goes the other way? Well, I guess they go in on an odd man rush and score because that's what's been happening over and over again. Anyway, 23-7. Like that's almost they're minus 19 on the season, and we've identified minus 16 of that just on that one game situation alone, or the 2. They can't score on the rush, and they can't defend against the rush. So my number, I'm not quite sure what it is, David, because the zero-sum game that should be the event summary actually doesn't add up. But it's something like this, 37-13, or it might be 35-12. But either way, it's like a 3-to-1 ratio, and that is shots that were blocked.
Wow.
They're saying Edmonton took 37 shots that were blocked, and they only credit San Jose with 35 blocks. So somebody's got to do some reconciling. And at the other end, Oilers got credit for blocking 12, and San Jose, it says they took 13 that got blocked. Either way, 37 out of Edmonton's 93 shot attempts were blocked, and only 13 of San Jose's only 43 shot attempts were blocked, but still a way higher percentage. And you know why? It was because when Edmonton shot the puck, there was like five San Jose guys between them and the net. They had their forwards were back. They were there. I mean, they weren't necessarily very good or doing anything, but they were just like this big picket fence there. And Edmonton was constantly getting their shots blocked. I mean, here's Edmonton's big shooters. Draisaitl, 5 shots on net, but 6 that were blocked. McDavid, 4 shots on net, but 7 that were blocked. Ekholm, 5-4. And it's just on and on down the line where, Nugent Hopkins, his only shot on goal of the entire game of what was a poor game from him, in my opinion, with 2 very costly penalties to boot. 1 shot, 2 that were blocked. And it was, just all down the sheet and then of course, each of those guys had a couple that missed the net as well. So for all the shots that they're trying, relatively, well under half of them are getting through to test the actual goalie. And then, of course, once they do test the goalie, the other goalie turns out to be Dominic Hasek in disguise again, which has happened like every game for what seems like the last month. So it's, anyway, San Jose were getting in the shooting lanes, and Edmonton gave up 3 goals on absolutely uncontested one-timers from the slot. And that's the hockey game.
Yeah, funny, Bruce. After Vegas beat the Oilers with using a zone, I just thought the Oilers are just going to face nothing but zone defense, packing the slot all year long.
Good point. Yeah.
And
teams have figured it out.
You just expected this to happen, right? Because that's how you beat the Oilers. And the only way the Oilers can is to be very smart, very controlled, lots of outside shots, going hard to the net, getting rebound plays. Not a whole lot of fun when you're used to sitting, shimmying and shaking into the slot. But that's how it's going to be. And funny, the Oilers themselves can't play that kind of defense in their own zone. They were unable to master the zone. Other teams can do it, but this team can't. Anyway, Bruce, let's move on to the conundrum part. And the conundrum is, I think at this point, just how, I mean, to put it crudely, you could say how many people are going to go on the bloodletting, but to just what makes sense, I guess, is the conundrum really. What makes sense here? What should the Oilers do?
Well, fire Dustin Schwartz, obviously. That's what everybody's saying.
Well, it's probably.
I think he's well down the totem pole of people that should be on the so-called firing line. Yeah. But he's nobody's safe right now. Let's put it that way. And it just depends how serious is Jeff Jackson, because he's come in as this new CEO of hockey operations, and since he's took command, his team has gone from a contender to an absolute tire fire. And I wonder about Jeff Jackson himself. Like, where is he? Let's hear something from you, Jeff. Maybe come out from Toronto and talk to the fans out here in Edmonton that are losing their shit, of which I'm one, but I'm one of many, many, many fans that are just beside themselves, ourselves, watching your team, talented team that was built for this season. The focus was on this season, all the borrowing from the future that's been done. And here's where I'm going to point the finger more at Ken Holland, who has, in what appears to be his final season, and he has doubled down on the players that he chose before, made hardly any changes to the team. And on his payroll, David, there are 5 Oilers who are 30 plus years old with cap hits of $5+ million and who have terms from anywhere from 19 to 2029 in the case of Ryan Nugent Hopkins, or 2028 in the case of of Zach Hyman, or 2027 in the case of Jack Campbell, or 2026 in the case of Matthias Ekholm or Evander Kane. And all those guys were given term to lower their cap hit so they could squeeze them under in the long run without really big concern that the Oilers are going to be paying these guys these big bucks when they're in their mid to late 30s in some cases. So that was done with this year in mind. They've borrowed against future draft capital to make cap space. They had to trade out a third rounder next year and a second rounder the year after to get out from under the disastrous Sarkassian contract. They had to trade a fourth rounder next year to buy down Matthias Ekholm's cap so they could get a little bit more room. And they even borrowed, or on the verge of borrowing, and I think this will happen, $3.25 million from next year's salary cap for this year's, so that they could afford to add the one big time difference maker that they added this summer in Connor Brown, who's turned out to be not a difference maker at all. And of course, now he's hurt, but the first game that he's back. And so all of this borrowing from the future is supposed to have a team that's contending now. And the team is contending for last place in the NHL. And right now they are tied for last place in the NHL. And having just lost to a team that last week gave up 10 goals in 2 consecutive games. First team in 58 years to do that. And the Oilers managed to score 2 goals on them, just like they're scoring 2 goals in game after game. And where is Ken Holland's vision? What happened to it? What are we seeing on the ice that is anything what he is supposedly masterminded in putting this team together? And this is a supporting cast. When he came here, McDavid and Draisaitl were already here and already under contract. Nurse was already here, and he kept him as an asset, but of course he went under a very controversial contract. I didn't mention those guys. That's your core players. These are the supporting cast that are supposed to be helping this team go somewhere. And where are they going? And what, where's the escape hatch? Like if this goes sideways, how do they clear the decks?
So I think what they'll do, Bruce, is go sequentially here.
Mm-hmm.
And
start
before writing off this season. I mean, the real question is, do you write off this season? When do you write off this season? Because listen, you have to make a decision whether you're going to trade your first round draft pick to try to get out of this. You have to make a decision whether it's time to trade Philip Broberg to get out of this and other young prospects to get out of this. Mm-hmm. So you can do those things right away in a deal. So that's a really big decision to make.
Well, here's the decision.
And I think that before they make that decision, Bruce, they will go in sequence. Okay. They will try a different coach. And the question is, who's that coach going to be at this point? It's is it if there wasn't this cloud around Joel Quenneville, it would be a simple decision. He would be here tomorrow. But there is this cloud around Quenneville from Chicago. And I'm not going to get into it because I haven't even looked at it. Like I can't say anything about it other than it's there, and the NHL won't let teams hire Joel Quenneville at this point. That's all we have to know at this point about that. So the other guy they probably want to hire is Mike Babcock, but he's got a huge cloud around him too. So they're not hiring him. So those are the two obvious guys. Then there's Gerard Gallant, who took Vegas to the Stanley Cup final. And maybe he's the breath of fresh air that the team needs. He's an offensive coach. He's experienced. I wouldn't be surprised if he's not getting the call. Any other? I mean, first of all, do you agree with the sequence that the first thing they're going to do is not throw away this season? Too early to do that. Right. Just 12 games in. Mm-hmm. They will hire another coach, and they will. It could be Gulitson would be the other guy, but I don't. I have a suspicion it's not going to be that they're going to go outside and they got to change it up more
They're
than
going to
that.
bring in a butt kicker and or a motivator.
A motivator. Or the other name you hear is Claude Julien. I mean, isn't he from like, when did he, I
The
don't
old
even think.
Hamilton Bulldogs coach from like 25 years ago. Yeah.
Well,
Uh, Here's a name that hasn't been brought up, so I will. Bruce, there it is, Boudreaux,
no way.
who
No.
has a reputation of coming in and quickly turning teams' fortunes around, although not necessarily them maintaining it in the long term. But he's had a record of sort of doing that with teams where the team's whole mental attitude changes upon his arrival. So anyway,
Don't you think he was too much of a tire fire? The reason I reacted so strongly, like the no way, is just he was such a tire fire.
mhm,
It was almost comical. It was like a bit of a sideshow at the end. And I don't know if that's on Boudreaux or on
it
management.
wasn't.
It's not on Boudreaux. If it's not on Boudreaux, maybe there's a
No,
chance. Maybe
the
you're right.
crowd, yeah, the crowds, the Vancouver fans are certainly behind him, and and Rick Tocchet has come in there and done the job. And what the Oilers need is somebody that can do that. If they've decided they need to turn the page on Jay Woodcroft, I guess what I'm saying, where I apologize, interrupted your beginning of your rant after you quietly listened to mine for about 5 minutes straight, is I'm not sure I want Ken Holland making that decision.
Oh,
I
I don't think
certainly
he
don't
is,
want him
Bruce.
making the decision on trading Philip Broberg and next year's first round pick, because his entire focus is only on this year, and the hell with the future, in terms of where the team is positioned. And I mean, we're all hoping that it works, but the early results are not good.
Well, maybe they
And
don't
they
fire
need to
Holland,
yeah, I don't think they're going
but
to
they move him
fire him. I
aside.
just think
Yeah.
they cannot let him alone make the decision. And I mean, I'm remembering Peter Chiarelli when the ground was turning into quicksand under his feet. And they left him to make some key decisions, like trading Ryan Strome for Ryan, what the heck's the guy's name? Spooner, or trading. This was my favorite, Drake Kajula for Brandon Manning, the one player in the entire NHL who Connor McDavid called out, or signing Koskinen to a 3-year contract in January when he could have had both his goalies competing for the one available contract rate for the entire rest of that year. And it was like one disastrous decision after the other. And only after the last one did they get around to firing the guy. Well, they need to, and Jeff Jackson needs to be involved in this process with a view of what's going to work in the short term, but what's not going to leave the team completely hung out to dry for the next 5 to 10 years, which they're already well down that path.
Julian hasn't coached since 2021 and didn't have a success. Like he hasn't, he with Boston there in the early part of the last decade, he had a lot of success, but hasn't really aced it since then. Boudreaux's record's pretty checkered in his last coaching job or two. Gerard Gallant, Bruce. Here's Gerard Gallant's winning records. I'll just give you one losses without the ties, but in the last 51 and 24, 43 and 32, 24 and 19, 52 and 24, 47 and 22. If they do what's expected, and which is to hire the next best veteran coach who's had the biggest success recently, who is available, it will definitely be Gerard Gallant. And they were disappointed in him in New York because he didn't take that team far enough. 47 and 22 record last year. That's not shabby. And I suspect he's gonna be the next coach of the Edmonton Oilers, would be my guess. Now let's just go take a step back. Do you think it's for sure that they're going to get what do you think are the odds then that they move on from Jay Woodcroft before Saturday's game?
Before Saturday's game, I'm not sure, but I mean, a lot of people were pointing to this game against the Sharks and saying, well,
Yeah.
if the Oilers were to lose that game, then that could be the trigger. Like if they can't even beat San Jose Sharks. And I'll give the Sharks credit for, playing a hard game tonight. But at the same time, you got to say, well, how come they played a hard game defensively and Edmonton Oilers really didn't? So there's fingers pointing at this point, and how quickly they respond. I mean, to this point, if Edmonton Oilers upper management is responding to anything, it is entirely transparent. We have heard not a word from Jeff Jackson, not a word from Ken Holland, not a word from Bob Nicholson. Like, where are these guys? I
Ken
mean,
Holland is
where's Daryl
suffering.
Cates?
Ken Holland is suffering miserably in the press box. The last
They
time I looked
showed
at
him
him,
tonight. I think they had to use a telephoto lens. There was one shot of him cowering in some bunker in the depths of the press box
how
upstairs.
it's
He's
but
got to
this
be.
is
It's a nightmare for him. Like, I feel
it's a
for him on the
nightmare
one
for all
level,
of
but
these people.
this is
And
his team.
Jay Woodcroft has been such a fantastic coach, and this is just
His record
terrible.
is great, and then all of a
This is
sudden,
just
his
terrible.
team can't piss a drop.
What a weird year, eh? What a weird thing. It's just like someone have a voodoo doll or 19 of them or 20
Mhm.
voodoo dolls. Like it's like ah
I mean, here we are again. Like, this is like I'm reading a photocopy of the last 10 games. Oilers outshoot the other guys 41-18. And they have shot attempts 92 to 43, and they get 2 goals
yeah,
and they
but
give in three.
Bruce,
Like how?
when the game was early in the game, the five alarm shots before the Oilers got that flurry late in the second period, it
Yeah,
was 5-2 for
yeah.
San Jose,
And
and
what
they
it
were
wind
up
up? 6-6.
6-6
So
for
for all
five
those
alarm
shots, they
shots.
didn't get
Yeah,
any advantage in five
no,
alarms.
it's because they're packing in front of the net, something the Oilers can't figure out how to do themselves for some reason. They're
Yeah,
packing in front of the net.
yeah.
They're allowing outside shots, and they're getting the bounces, and they're going hard to the net, and they're outworking the Oilers. And the Oilers, so many
Mhm.
offensive players who don't like to play defense, and man, that is just haunting them right now.
Yeah.
So, uh, Connor Brown's another decision they have to make. He's only played 9 games, right? So, um,
They're
that's it depends how long he's injured for, but I don't see them doing anything but going
they're
with him.
honor bound. I mean,
They are. They
Jeff
are.
Jackson represented Connor Brown when he
Yeah.
signed that contract, for goodness sake. And now he's flipped to the other team. I mean, I guess he could be the ultimate Darth Vader and tell his former client, too bad, so sad, we're screwing you
Well,
after
what
9
would
games. But
Vegas
I
do?
don't think, well, yeah, what would Vegas do? I can't see it. And you know, I mean, there is such a thing as honor, and I don't think that would be a very honorable thing to do. But you know,
I completely agree, and I don't think they'll do it.
he had like teams offering him 3 years at 3 million and stuff like that. So he took a chance anyway, and he's a good player, and they're missing him right now, in my opinion. I thought he was starting to come around, then he got hurt, and I'll be filleted for this, but I think they're missing Matthias Janmark right now too,
Of
because he is
course,
actually a conscientious defensive forward, which is something they sorely lack.
it's got to be all the forwards playing defense. Like in the modern NHL with the game so tight, the team so tight, and the variation of the players so small, you can't have people not playing defense. They've all got to do it, and they're not. So yeah, I agree
Nope.
with you, Janmark. Bruce, how many major mistakes has Matthias Janmark made on grade A shots against this year? Zero, zero. So, you know, the whole thing about him is it's just ridiculous. He's a good role player. He's a decent player, and they miss him. They miss Connor Brown. I think he might have been coming around, but
I thought he was coming
he was
around. I
coming
thought he was
around,
playing
and then
better every game.
boom. Yeah, it's just niggling injuries. One that set Connor McDavid back in a really,
Yeah, well,
for
that's
7, 8, 9 games. Finally tonight, like I don't know if it was just San Jose, but man, McDavid looked really good from this end of the second period on, which is encouraging. A new coach coming in is going to get a healthy and fired up Connor McDavid. It looks like so. If that's how it plays out, so I just think it's going to be sequential. You try. So they did the first thing right. They got rid of the one goalie. Now they might trade for a goalie. Um, in conjunction with bringing in a new coach, but I don't know. You know, they could trade for a goalie if that trade's there, Bruce. They could blow their brains out on a new goalie and all in on a new goalie. And that might be the play. And Jay Woodcroft might not be fired. That would be the one thing if they have that trade and they think they think it's mainly the goalie, then that could be the one thing that would save Woodcroft. Bring in a new goalie, see if that works. And then if it doesn't, then you fire Woodcroft. But I think that most likely is both might be in the cards. New goalie and fire Woodcroft, bring in a new coach, bring in a new goalie. And probably trade your first pick in Broberg for that new goalie and other things. Like they're going to have to move some salary.
Well, they better lottery protect it then if they're.
That would be a good idea. Hopefully, Jeff Jackson.
That's a pretty common thing.
It's a pretty common practice. Lottery protected, so you're not totally
trading
decimated.
Connor Bedard for James Reimer.
Yeah. Macklin Celebrini. Is that his name? Macklin Celebrini?
Macklin Celebrini, yeah.
Celebrini or Celebrini? Celebrini. Do they have the Elvish pronunciation of Celebrini, or is it like Celebrini would be what it's almost Cicerelli Celebrini? It's Italian, so they have the soft C. Yeah. Bruce.
Yeah.
Anything? I don't know. It's just what a weird season. And the old saying, man, did that escalate quickly? Does that ever come to mind? It is just, I've been expecting them to turn it around. Even in the third period, I thought, McDavid's going to turn this around. And then that goal against early in the third, which is just typical goal against. Yeah. We've seen so many times all year long from all of the players, all of them, except for maybe Brett Kulak. He's really been playing well. He's been steady Eddie back there. There's a few guys who have been steady Eddies, but they're few and far between, Bruce. Kulak actually at the start of the year was pretty wretched when he was after coming back from his injury. But then, man, he's been solid, and now I've jinxed him, of course. But there's no one who's not making these mistakes. Yeah. There's just no one.
Yeah, well, last game, I mean, that key goal that we talked about earlier that people were on Bouchard's case for. I mean, the Oilers just cut the deficit to 1-goal deficit, and they're still over a period to play, and they're down by 1. I mean, you don't have to risk everything. If it's 2 minutes left, then sure, you take a chance in the offensive blue line. But if there's 22 minutes left or 18 minutes left, like there was tonight, you still, you got to win the period. You don't have to win that shift to tie the game. You just got to win the period. And it's a hell of a lot harder to win the period when you're 2 goals down as opposed to just 1. And that was a killer again.
Yeah. It's a league, Bruce, that seems to be built for negative tactics right now. Mm-hmm. Park the bus, counterattack, wait for the mistake, go for the, try to score as many Californians as you can. The outside shot tipped in. And the Oilers aren't built for the Oilers psychologically are not built to park the bus, play that game. Obviously, they want to press, they want to go after the puck, they want to attack, and that ain't working in this park the bus league. It is not working. They want they want the fire wagon hockey. Well, the fire wagon is now firmly planted in front of the opposition net, and nothing easy's getting through. Nothing easy. The Oilers are working so hard to score.
Yeah,
that hasn't gone away.
No,
and they're not able to score even.
Nope, they're firing 40 shots a night, and they're scoring on 5% of their shots. This was the best shooting team in the league last year, the highest shooting percentage. And last time I looked, they were 30th.
They are not getting as many 5-alarm shots as the opposition, is the truth. They might be getting more shots and even more grade A shots, but on the most dangerous scoring chances. And if you looked at those 5-alarm shots and you were zeroing in for the ones, if you had another category, the nuclear shots or whatever you want to call them, the sure things, the 50-50s almost. I bet you it's even more for the opposition with those kinds of shots. Mm-hmm. And I have all the games still on tape except for the first one, so maybe I'll go through and have a look. I mean,
Mhm.
all the goals are online at NHL.com anyway. But just how many of like even this higher level? Because you pointed it out tonight. San Jose just had more of those kinds of shots.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the game winner, like Philip Zadina, he didn't even get all of it. He just kind of had to float one and get it on net, and he put it in the Skinner's side of the net because he had basically post to post to shoot it at, and it's just too easy of an odd man rush, too easy of a pass, too easy of a shot.
All right, Bruce. I think we've run out of steam.
Yeah, this has not been a good day.
No.
The
Yeah.
hockey game's only part of it, David. And
Yeah, I
I don't
know.
really want to get into the rest, but it's not been a good day, and it's enough said about that.
All right. Let's leave it there, Bruce. Thanks for
Let's leave
talking
it
tonight.
there. Tomorrow's another day, and it could be a busy one.
Could be a busy one. All right. Thanks for talking, Bruce.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.